Too late now. That would have been smart. I don't know. Smile at him, Lizzie.
Jack Gillette. Everyone ready? The line, one of the most common elements of thought and matter in the world. My math book defines the line as a straight curve that extends indefinitely in two opposite directions. Even that narrow definition admits that lines are endless, like at airport security. I think it may blow your mind how many kinds of lines there are. You've got straight lines, curved lines, fishing lines, airlines, outlines, pickup lines, clothesline, borderline, waterline, finish line, neckline, waistline, fault line, guideline, dotted line, other line, like, yes sir, he's on the other line. Staging lines, phone lines, shock lines, front lines, shot lines, street lines, tow lines, tough lines, sissy lines, and lines that climb on rocks. I hope you're taking notes. Some of my earliest memories are of experiences in my preschool class, and many of them involve lines. I remember all of us coloring and seeing who could color inside the lines of our coloring pages the best. We also stood in lots of lines, like for the water fountain. We even walked to the playground with our hands on each other's shoulders, staying on top of the black strip of asphalt used to patch up a crack in the parking lot. In addition to the lines you've stood in and colored between since preschool, you've also got lines of thought, lines you memorized to be in a play, lines in poetry, lines you draw, lines you wait behind, lines you read between, lines of communication, line of work, line of scrimmage, line of fire, line of sight, lines of longitude, lines of latitude, line of duty, line of questioning, line of merchandise, lifeline, poverty line, picket line, international date line, battle line, timeline, line, property line, online, skyline, assembly line, receiving hairline, lifeline, poverty line, family line, and 300-pound lineman. Lines are everywhere, and when put in the right hands, just a few can speak volumes. Take the renowned 20th century artist, Frenchman Henri Matisse. Although he is famed for his expressive and creative use of color, Matisse once wrote, "My line drawing is the most direct translation of my emotion." Matisse experimented with lines throughout his career as an artist and became proficient in his black and white works by portraying intricate beauty and expression with just a few strokes of the brush. With only 11 careful lines, Matisse completed this painting called Nadia in Sharp Profile. In describing a collection of black and white Matisse prints I happened to see in Austin a few summers ago, a critic calls the work symphonies of simple lines. The line may seem simple on its own, but to a good artist, it is valuable and beautiful. The line can be art, and many other things you'll remember from your notes, but some lines are meant to be crossed. You're probably familiar with the story of the Alamo. Yes, it is a story. The truth is shrouded with myth, but it's a very beautiful story because it's a story about love, and that's worth remembering. Fewer than 200 Texans were facing an army of up to 6,000 Mexican troops. They were in the heart of a revolution for freedom that Mexican General Santa Anna was attempting to stifle. There would be no help this time. Provisions were low. Their fort, as you know, was hardly defensible, and they were surrounded. In 1873, 37 years after Texas won its independence from Mexico, there appeared in the Texas Almanac a very interesting article. The author claimed to have a special account of a passionate call to sacrifice given by Texas leader Colonel William Travis. A few telling excerpts of his oration are as follows. My brave companions, stern necessity compels me to employ the few moments afforded me by this probably brief cessation in conflict in making known to you the most interesting, yet the most solemn, melancholy, and unwelcome fact that perishing humanity can realize. Within a very few days, perhaps a very few hours, we must all be in eternity, but I leave every man to his own choice. My own choice is to stay in this fort and die for my country, fighting as long as breath shall remain in my body. This will I do, even if you leave me alone. There is little Travis and his men could have personally gained in dying, maybe fame, how could they know? One thing is sure, though, they had everything to lose. The story goes on to say that William Travis unsheathed his sword and drew a line in the dirt in front of his men, saying, I now want every man who is determined to stay here and die with me to come across this line. That line was certain death, but they signed up for that. Not a peaceful passing after living out 20 years of comfortable retirement on their big Texas ranches, but a violent, painful death without any chance of making it. That line was foolishness, but genuine love is foolish. Why else would you give your life for freedom you knew you would never enjoy? Die to help people who may never find out what happened to you, for the betterment of lives of distant generations, but for a deep, selfless love. Whether or not this version of the story is factual isn't important. What matters is that it's beautiful and it's inspiring. It paints a picture of how full-hearted devotion isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's bloody, but it's worth it. Just the other day, we were driving in our car on a road my family uses often. Then, out of the blue, we saw a strip of yellow tape that said caution all over it, lying flat on top of the road. There was no construction, no workers, no wreck, and we drove right over it at the speed limit. But it begs the question, what if we stopped? What if we slammed on the brakes and parked in the middle of the road simply because a commonly accepted official sign told us to? Best case scenario, we would sit and wait forever or until the strip of tape was removed. A worst case, and more likely, the cars behind us would stop as well, and no one would get to where they were supposed to go, even if they were doing what they were supposed to do. Unless, of course, some brave soul decided to get out of line and drive over the strip of caution tape. But who would do that? Like Jesus' parable of the Samaritan, who stopped what he was doing to help the beat-up Jew on the side of the road, even after others, including a priest, walked past. It takes guts sometimes to do what you're supposed to do. The world is screaming, caution, danger, the robbers may still be around. You could have spent that money on a new anything. And besides, you don't have to help him. He's a Jew. But God's love says no. I'm breaking through those barriers. I'm driving over that caution tape because according to the love of God in me, that's my route. One time, when a woman poured a year's worth of wages and perfume on Jesus' feet, he said, that's the gospel. What? That's not very economical. What a waste. When a poor widow put in a minuscule sum of money for her offering, Jesus said, yes, that's it, because it was her everything. But look, Jesus, now, you're a good teacher and all, but that's really pushing it. I was always taught 10, but What about retirement, savings and investment, my daily Starbucks, gas? It's gonna look foolish. Nobody does this. Instead, we praise those who started with nothing and fought their way to the top. But what about starting with something and ending with nothing? Sound a little like throwing your life away? Actually, yeah. Living like Jesus looks a whole lot like dying to the world. But he said trying to save your own life is a pretty good way to lose it in the end. The love of God goes against normal thinking. Wait a second. You just lay hands on that person and you believe they won't be sick anymore. You're going to the corners of the globe, not on vacation, but for the gospel. You hang with them, but you're not becoming like them. You're weird, but to be like Jesus, you have to be weird. In other words, you have to deny yourself. What? And take up your cross and follow him. What? But that's what Jesus did. He went so hard against what people thought they should be doing, they killed him. The mountains he told to move, moved. The people he touched were healed. The demons he told to leave, left. It was different. It doesn't make sense. It's frowned upon. For Jesus, it meant getting bloody. But that's what being sold out to the love of God is like. I don't have 3 points today, nor do I have a sword to draw a line on the ground. But, my brave companions, I do have one poignant point with which to draw my conclusion. Some may think it best to keep in line, walk the line, or color within the lines of religion and culture. But I know that I am called to cross